A quick warning, this episode contains graphic depictions of self-harm. We discuss severe depression, addiction, and its symptoms, and use explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome back to Generation SOS on Record. This season, we have new guests, lessons, and experiences to share with you, all having to do with addiction, recovery, and mental health. So strap in and get ready for another season of sharing our stories.
Hey guys, I'm 20 and I'm 5 days sober. I just got kicked out of my 5th rehab. I used to hate AA. Now I think sobriety's fucking cool.
All right, so welcome to this next episode of our podcast. We have a speaker today who's going to share his story. He's a young speaker. How old are you?
I'm 20.
Like drugs and alcohol, addiction recovery is something that you deal with.
Firstly, yeah, thanks so much guys for having me on this. I've been listening to the podcast, following the Instagram. I'm grateful that there are, like people outside of, the people who are in recovery that are sort of allies, trying to do this really amazing work. Yeah, I just got kicked out of my 5th rehab. I'm 5 days sober right now. I've been sober before at rehab, when I go for inpatient stays, but I often relapse like directly out of getting out of there. But this time I got pretty violently thrown out of California, so it was somewhat of a bottom. So, well, basically I first went to rehab when I was like 17, turning 18. I was primarily using weed and some alcohol, but not too much. That was really before I had gotten into like harder drugs or anything like that. Yeah, I just like couldn't stop getting drunk and high, and it was really creating unmanageability in my life. And I sent myself. It wasn't one of those situations where a kid's parents were like, "You have to go." I was like, please, like someone send me somewhere because I just like can't do this anymore and I don't want to go to college like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a sophomore in college now, so
Okay.
that was hard. Yeah, so that was my first experience there. Fast forward to now, when I was younger and like 18, I was really just struggling with like weed, alcohol, and what that turns into is I would just take whatever, which is the problem. I will literally do absolutely anything to get fucked up in a really addicty way about it. In active addiction, I lose control and I will lie, steal, like doesn't matter to me because I'm just trying to get high at that point.
You started with weed and now it's literally anything under the sun. Like, how did that transition happen? Because like there's this whole spiel about like weed is dangerous because it'll get you into everything, but people tend to deny that. It sounds like that's the story you're telling. So how did that happen?
That whole notion of the fact that weed is non-addictive or weed is not as serious or whatever, it's not the same. In my experience personally has not been true because I've been able to get really intoxicated for years with that to the point where it's impaired my judgment so that I pick up other things. It's depressed my mood, altered my brain chemistry. But essentially the transition was as follows. It was that I was at college and I decided, you know what, I'm done with this. Can't smoke weed anymore. Can't do it. So I put down the weed and I started calling myself sober, but I was drinking like a lot, like a lot. So that was the first transition. It went from weed to alcohol. I was getting like blacked out every night. So I was functional during the day. I like randomly made the dean's list this semester, even though I was like blacked out every night. I
Wow.
couldn't tell you what happened this semester at all. But so that's sort of the illusion. It like feels like you're functional, but you're like not. And then basically it just started being that whenever I was drunk, I would take anything because I would get really drunk. And then I was offered cocaine, didn't like it, but I needed to try it again just to make sure that I didn't like it. Then I needed to try it 10 more times just to
Right.
make sure that I didn't like it. And now all of a sudden I'm like, I love cocaine.
And
So
that
that's how.
happened sophomore year of college for you.
It was a very, very quick transition. I never did it in high school.
So you're kind of saying it went from weed, alcohol, cocaine.
Yeah. I had a brief stint with methamphetamine my freshman year. Um, it's not a huge part of my story, but I guess it's part of it because it's just like encapsulated, so I'll just take whatever.
You said that this is now your fifth time coming out of rehabs that you said.
hmm hmm
So what were all of those experiences like? And what do you feel like there's a reason they haven't gotten you sober yet? Are you a believer in that? Like, what's that situation?
I think that rehab is sort of like the ticket to entry into sobriety because what I've learned is that there's a huge difference between abstinence and sobriety. The difference for me is that abstinence is not drinking and sobriety is working the Alcoholics Anonymous program. I used to hate AA for many moons. I hated AA so much. That all made perfect sense to me until I surrendered. Until I said, you know what? I am an alcoholic, which, for me encompasses drugs as well, as it does for many.
Mm.
But I'm an alcoholic, and alcoholics can't drink. And I know that. So the only way to get sober, in my personal opinion, is to work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It
Mm.
is truly the only way. This morning I went to a 7 a.m. meeting. Last night I went to a 1 a.m. meeting. That's just my life now. It's the
Yeah.
only way that I can do that. And that means like prioritizing my sobriety. Or
Mm.
or I'm gonna fucking like die. Like I can't. I don't want to anymore.
Yeah.
It's definitely hard, but I also am so grateful for the fact that there's so many amazing people in the program that are so accepting of me. Hey guys, I'm 20 and I'm 5 days sober. Everyone like treats me like the most special person in the room, and to some extent, because everyone's like, if you get sober right now, you can conquer the world. Like, I feel like the work that I have been doing for a long time, like years, especially this most recent 6 months, has led up to these 5 days of sobriety so far, which are the first that I've really ever had on my own. One thing that definitely kind of like slapped me in the face was like I got 5150'd in California. I was on thin ice because I'm a drug addict. When they gave me medicine to detox from the alcohol that I was drinking really severely, like Valium, for example, I would this is fucked up. Trigger warning, this is fucked up. I would keep it under my tongue, take it back to my room, crush it up and snort it. And then
Mm.
I'd be like, my anxiety is really high, so I need anxiety medicine. And they would give me this anxiety medicine and the Valium, and then I would save it up all day. They'd give it to me 3 times a day. And then at night I would like crush up this like mound of like powder and then like snort all of it. So I wasn't even like technically sober for my first like 3 or 4 days in inpatient rehab. I was like still abusing drugs. And then I got into like a bit of like a mental health issue, which is like I get when I get overwhelmed, I have this tendency to like self-harm, which is a
Yeah.
really, really bad coping mechanism. My arms and legs are like sort of mutilated. This is pretty bad.
Mm.
And that is why they called the fire department, the police department, the mental hospital, the ER, everyone. So that was a lot. Then I like went to the ER and I like rizzed up the doctor, of course. And I was
Mm.
like, hey man, like what's going on? This is like a sticky situation. And he was like, oh, so you're like not insane? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not insane. It's not a good coping mechanism, not don't have any drugs. So he let me leave. But then the place was not like was they said you can't come back. The rehab said you can't come back. We can't handle you. So now I'm back in the city and AA is the only way that I'm going to survive this disease.
Whatever our initial instinctual reaction is to that, you lived it a few days ago. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you for saying that.
thank you for telling it, because I know you're like sacrificing your own kind of like privacy and whatever to tell a story to other people who just might relate or get something from it. And that's what you're doing right now, is entirely selfless.
I
So,
appreciate that.
yeah.
And the reason why I opted to come and do this interview and share that is because, like a lot of people struggle with mental health. I don't know if exactly as many people that struggle with mental health struggle with self-harm, but for those who do, it's like it's this crazy disconnect between what's happening and like how I can conceptualize the severity of the issue because I've been resorting to self-harm for about a year now, probably in moments of overwhelm. But finally, after being like in the mental hospital for a minute, it's made me sort of realize, well, yeah, this is scary for other people and it affects other people, which then affects me. So I need to find better coping mechanisms so that this cyclical, disastrous thing doesn't continue. One of the things that I'm doing for myself is that I'm moving out of my, like college dorm and into this sober dorm. What's up?
Yeah.
Yep,
What's
that
up?
sounds way better.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like contemplating doing it since I got to college, and I never wanted to, but I never really wanted to get sober until now. I'm a part of this like quasi fraternity thing. It's like pretty much a drinking club. People get together and they drink. And I can't do that right now. So I'm probably gonna have to take a step back, which is a big sacrifice because I like it a lot and it's fun. So yeah, I mean, it's really about I have an amazing sponsor. Like as I was saying before, like there's a like not using is one thing, but like sobriety in the AA rooms means an entirely different thing. It means like
Mhm.
it's working the steps and like I went to a meeting this morning at 7 and this dude said the most genius, insightful, profound thing. He said, "There's nothing cool about tragedy." I was like, oh shit, dog. Like, oh my God, here I've been. It's like this fucking like annoying ass angsty teenager like romanticizing tragedy. And I'm like, and now I'm like, that's fucking stupid. Like everyone's sad. Like if I die right now an alcoholic death, it's not special. It's not unique. I just did the same shit that's been going on for like centuries. I just could stop it and then do so much more with my life than that. So
Yeah.
A, I don't want to die anymore. I used to want to die a lot, and now I don't. And B, I just want to do the steps because I feel like I'll be such a better person to myself and to the people around me because of it.
The steps, of course, involve some component of like mental healing as well, but a lot of what we're talking about is about like sobriety, and that type of thing. But obviously there has to be some other side of it for you that's working through the rest of it, that's not just about drugs and alcohol, but like about how you're feeling deep down. So like, are you in therapy? How do you cope with that part of it?
Yeah, totally. I have a great therapist. Everyone get a therapist. Oh God, so
Oh, we've
good.
said that one before.
Everyone get a therapist.
Yeah.
If you can have, if you're fortunate enough, I'm so grateful that I have the resources and my parents can provide therapy for me because it's really changed my life in many ways. Um, Really so grateful. I'm medicated. I take antidepressants. You gotta do what you gotta
No
do.
shame in it. No shame. No
No
No,
shame.
shame.
not at all. And what
Yeah.
happens to me when I don't take those for even a day, it like fucks with my brain chemistry so bad that I go crazy. And not only will I relapse if I don't take my meds, certainly, but I will freak the fuck out and like be like a different human being with a different personality because I do rely on these medications. And while I once, preceding the meds, like where didn't want to be relying on them, fuck that, dude. Like just take the meds.
Yeah.
Like they're here for a reason. And that is a personal opinion. I completely understand and respect anyone who's opposed. There are people with holistic options, but whether those meds be like Prozac or meditation, just do it
Mm-hmm.
consistently. I don't really know what I'm gonna do about my mental health. I feel like sobriety is the entry point into happiness, and then I can continue to develop that from there. But I definitely can't be happy like this.
Working the steps to get sober. And as you go down that path, your mental health will increase. Is that kind of where you just started off. So it's okay if you don't have like a pinpoint plan for it all, day by day kind of thing.
That is essentially what I'm saying there, because that is what I've seen in the rooms, in the program.
Yeah.
People come in there and they say, I was fucking miserable. It was just like you. I relate to everyone, that beauty of AA. Like, in some ways, I am expecting to really experience more happiness than I do feel these days after working the steps, which could take a long time. It could take years.
But this is the tale of a young kid with like a whole thing going on and a life, and like the opposite of the stereotyped AA person, like
Totally, yeah.
you are completely the opposite with your like Led Zeppelin poster in the background, and like you are just a kid in college with your whole thing going on who is struggling with addiction. And like you are the story of how fast you can go from like the kid who hates it all and thinks that will never be them to a kid with like hopes for an even more fulfilling and enriched and colorful life. You're only 20. It's not like it took you 50 years to turn around and be the other dude.
Final kind of point that I want to make is that it's really like a perspective shift, because I used to think sobriety was stupid and hard. And now I think sobriety is fucking cool. I think it's badass as fuck. If you can actually get sober and like experience emotions without the escape. I totally used to think that I couldn't ever go to a party or a function without drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
And the truth is that, I mean, there's an unfortunate truth is that right now, today, I can't, because I have to get sober.
Right.
And that's a sacrifice that I'm making. But once I experience that sobriety and that confidence, I would love to go back out there and shake my ass. It's totally a thing to go out sober. And I'm really looking forward to that.
You have obviously so much to look forward to, so much ahead of you, lots going on right now. And I'm rooting for you always, 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 always. And also just like, thank you for being so blunt and transparent. I think that's like the coolest thing about talking to you right now, is that like none of this is BS. And none of it's like flowered up to be digestible for the common folk. Like, this is just real life.
For more conversations like these, or to find a support system near you, go to generationsos.org.